Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Ron White is doing his last show ever tomorrow in Tulsa. I'm starting to think I imagine this. There is no press whatsoever from Ron White this week. I've been looking, believe me. Bill Engvall also doing his final show tomorrow night. That one is in Utah. I've seen a few Bill Engvall articles and I've shared them with you, but really nothing at all about Ron White. Ron is on the Kill Tony podcast this week. I haven't listened to it yet, but that should be a great listen. I found an article from the Star-Telegram from the summer where Ron White talked about retiring, and he said there never were any goals. It just turned out I had this connection with Middle America, and it went from coast to coast. I thought I was good at being a stand-up comic, and I know stand-ups who are better than me, but they didn't do as well because they didn't appeal to the masses. That plus everything Jeff Foxworthy did for me. I got famous with 10 minutes of material. That first show took 16 years to write. It was the perfect storm. After that first DVD came out, it sold 4 million copies, and people just passed it around. I could put a date on a calendar and sell out in 2 minutes. I just assumed it wouldn't last that long, but it kept on and on and on. Then it continues on. The Star-Telegram said, "Are you really going to retire?" Ron White said, "I'll pop in and do sets. I still like writing. I just won't tour anymore. I don't want to be on a schedule where I have to be somewhere. I've worked every weekend for 36 years and it's been great, but I want to go to a concert every now and then. What's he going to do in retirement? Whatever I want. I want to see the world. I want to see my mom who's in Florida right now. It's time to retire. Ticket sales are as good as they've ever been. I figured someone has to put a stop to this, so I pulled the plug. I'm open to the idea that I might hate retirement, so I may go back." During the pandemic, I didn't miss it at all. They asked him why the South is the butt of so many jokes. Ron said, "I never really made fun of the South, but maybe I'm lying. It's an easy target. It's people's perceptions of Alabama and Mississippi of being on the slower side, which I can assure you, it's absolutely true. I've never been much for low-hanging fruit. It's why I never did political humor. Back in 2016, when every comic was doing Trump material, I decided not to. I know my crowd is very, very divided, and I don't think people are coming to me for political satire. Since I've never done it before, there was no reason to do it then. I think my crowd appreciated that. I may have offended people, but not over anything I could intentionally avoid. I want them to have fun at my show and not leave any smarter than when they got there. You felt the release of laughter, and that's what they want." They asked him about two staples of his act, cigarettes and booze. "Hey, Ron, you never see people smoking anywhere. Does that make you wistful at all?" Ron said, "I still smoke on stage, and no one does it anymore. I came out with a cigar, take a couple puffs, and I put it out. I haven't had a drink of alcohol in 2 years. After a lifetime of doing it, doctors asking me, how long do you want to live? I was drunk every night for years, and I believe there's only so much alcohol you can drink." Did the traveling and the road get to him? He said, "It's not good for you, that's sure. You're in a different time zone every day almost. The hours suck. The food is roady. It's hard to keep weight off. We eat after the shows at a Taco Bell on the way to Omaha on a tour bus. It's a pretty brutal way to live, but I got to tell you, for the most part, I loved it. I love to travel as long as there was a stage to get on. I have no other skills. I happen to be really good at one thing, and it's something I love, and that's be on stage. I still go on stage with a drink in my hand. It's a show. It's not the truth. It's a show. It could be true, but it doesn't have to be to make you laugh. There's not one thing I would do different. It was in my blood to do stand-up, and the career went further than I ever dreamed. When I was a club headliner, that was enough. I could have done that for a long time and been happy as a clam. Even after Jeff Foxworthy blew up with me standing right next to him, I didn't think it would happen to me. I was doing more business on the road than anybody. I was one of the top touring acts in the world by myself. There might have been one other guy. It was Jeff Dunham. Dave Chappelle does huge shows and Joe Rogan does, but they didn't do as many. Now, normally I would split this and go on another topic here, but since we're at the end of Ron White's career, I got to use the article. Ron was asked if there was anything he wanted to accomplish that he didn't. He said, "No. A lot of people use TV sitcoms to jump up to the level of business that I do. I tried TV and I tried different things every now and then, but my career caught hold anyway. I didn't do TV for money. Whenever I did TV or movies, it cost me money because I had to stop touring. I got to be the perfect amount of famous, which is not everyone knows who I am because it didn't come from a huge platform. It was grassroots. I don't sit around with any regrets at all. I got to do all of this with my friends. I still don't mind traveling on the bus. I don't want to have to do it. In my mind, that's retired. If for some reason I decide to crank up again, I will, but I don't see it." Congratulations, Ron White, on a great career. I mentioned recently, I worked with Ron a few times back at Blue Collar Radio. I remember having a pleasant exchange with him in Nashville. So to back up a little, when we first started playing comedy records on the radio, a lot of the comedians were like, "Hey, you're stealing my act, da-da-da-da." And we're like, "No, you have an album and we're playing it just like you would play a record by, I don't know, U2. There's royalties and stuff." Then they all filed with Sound Exchange, and then the royalty checks started getting to the artists. I remember Ron White meeting me, finding out what I did for a living, and he thanked me because he had just gotten an $80,000 check. Congratulations, Ron. From the Daily Mail, Patton Oswalt has blasted bad comedians for playing it safe and wanting to parrot back what audiences want to hear. Oh no. Patton Oswalt was on the podcast The New Abnormal and said, with all bad comedians, hacks don't like variables. Every crowd is its own thing and you've got to make it work. They're the parallel with the kids in college who just studied for the test. Tell me what I need to know so I can parrot back and get my A. They don't want to actually interpret what they're learning. They're not imaginative. So as comedians, you're like, I want a crowd where I know the 8 things to say to get my 8 applause breaks. Then I will sell my t-shirts and buttons. You know, as I read that sentence, I was thinking of a particular comedian who recently had a special. And I'm like, yeah, you do know the 8 things to say to get your 8 applause breaks. I'll leave it to you to wonder who's in my brain right now. Patton insisted that truly edgy comedians, such as the late Bill Hicks, perform because it's who they are rather than make a conscious choice. Really interesting. Pretty good take there by Patton Oswalt. Cameron Esposito is doing early shows tonight. My kind of show. Tonight's show, 7:30. Awesome. We go out and we're home by 10:15. That sounds wonderful. The New Year's Eve show will start at 8:30. All right, well, then we'll get home at 11 something, sit down, watch some Seacrest, I guess. Cameron says, I don't think stand-up and heavy drinking mix in the way that some people pretend that they do. As a comic, trial by fire, you get really good at keeping people's attention as much as you can, and at this point, I'm not necessarily choosing to do that anymore. I'm on Team Early Show. Jeff Dunham is playing Columbus tonight. He says, I love that part of the country. I have a great appreciation for Ohio going all the way back to my comedy club dates. In the mid-'70s, I garnered a good following on the Funny Bone chain of clubs with great fans, and every 18 months I'd come back. It's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you go where people like you? In the mid-'70s, Jeff Dunham was touring. How old is Jeff Dunham? Jeff Dunham is 60. Wait, does that math work? No. 40 years ago, right, is 1982, so he'd be 20. And if we back 5 years off from that, he'd be 17? Yeah, in the middle of the 70s, maybe? Seems like a little bit of a stretch there, Jeff Dunham. Yeah, mid-70s? Yeah, okay. He said his oldest character is Jose Jalapeno, who's a bit like Speedy Gonzalez. When I put him out on the show for several years, people were really upset. So many Hispanic people came to me to say how much they like him, so he remains. Peanut and I argue about this. The joke there, so you think it's racist if I keep Jose in the show? So what if I take him out of the show? Then that's discrimination. Jeff, why did you pick Walter to portray the president? Jeff said, for years, people have said how much Walter looks like Joe Biden, so we embrace that. Walter puts on the sunglasses and suit and pretends it's Biden, an old guy doing old guy things. That way he can talk out of character and still be Walter. I made fun of Trump when he was in office, and now it's Mr. Biden's turn. It was young man, old man when I started out with Walter in college. Then I got married, got kids, divorced, married again, had more kids. So our relationship has changed over time. 2 stops today on Gossip Corner. Congratulations, Dan Soder is now engaged to Katie Nolan. You know her from sports television programs and really awful broadcasting on Apple Baseball Friday nights. Sorry, Katie Nolan. That was atrocious. Congratulations on your engagement. And from Page 6, Pete Davidson and Emily Ratajkowski. It's over. Sorry to break the news to everybody. A source tells Page 6 their fling has moved into the friend zone, but it's fine with both of them. That's nice. Running out of calendar here to clear out all these lists, all right? It's Decider's 10 best stand-up comedy specials of 2022. I've discussed these specials a lot, so let's just skim the list really quickly. 10, Norm Macdonald, Nothing Special. 9, Moses Storm's Trash White. I haven't seen that appearing on lists. Decider writes, it's a bit of a magic trick for a comedian to stand on a meticulously designed stage, dressed head to toe in white to match the stage and the objects upon it, and then mock the modern-day comedy special for sometimes seeming more like a TED Talk than anything resembling funny, only to follow that by saying, I have nothing of educational value to add to your night. I just want to tell you what it feels like to be poor. 8, Would It Kill You to Laugh? Kate Berlant and John Early. 7, Chris Redd's Why Am I Like This? 6, Lorel Howery's I Said It, Y'all Thinking It. 5, Bill Burr Live at Red Rocks. 4, Taylor Tomlinson's Look at You. 3, Shang Wang's Sweet and Juicy. Nice to see that way up the list. That was my number 1 special of the year. If you can go back to Monday's episode, and I shared my list, but Shang Wang is my top special of the year. 2, Jenna Friedman's Lady Killer. I haven't seen that way up the list. Wow. This is a special in which Jenna finds herself cracking abortion jokes while carrying her own baby to term. And guess what their number 1 special of the year is? I don't get it, everybody. I really encourage you to hit me in the comments. Facebook group is Daily Comedy News Podcast Group. You can hit the comments on the YouTube version of this episode. But number 1, Gerard Carmichael's Nathaniel. I get that it's important. I get that he had something to say, but in my humble opinion, comedy specials should be funny. That's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. See you tomorrow. All right, here's the pitch. 5 stories. They're all good news. It's called 5 Good News Stories. No negative news, just good news. Nice, easy way to start your day. Hopefully a smile. Hi, I'm Johnny Mac, host of 5 Good News Stories. You get the premise? There's 5 stories, and they're all good news. It's the number 5 Good News Stories. 5 Good News Stories. Follow the show wherever you get your podcasts.